We often use the word church. And when we hear the word church, I'm sure we get a variety of different images in our minds. Perhaps a special sanctuary like this. Or perhaps beautiful music like we've had lift our hearts and inspire us this morning. Or maybe a Sunday school lesson. Or maybe something fun that the kids have done here, how they drive by and they say, that's my church, I want to go now. Well, it's Thursday, honey, no one's there. I want to go anyway. You know, we hear stories like that. It warms our hearts. And so we have already notions about church, but it's important to go back to the source, to go back to Scripture, to go back to Jesus, to go back to Paul, and have them tell us what we need to be about when we are together in the Spirit, when we're seeking to be church. And that's what happened this morning with the passage from Romans 12. It's a bedrock passage about what it's really like to be part of a church. These things you should do or try to do, and these things you should avoid doing. And so, love from the center of who you are. In other words, it's not a superficial thing, from your center. Help the needy. Be inventive in hospitality. We take initiative to open our hearts, our homes, our lives. Bless your enemies. And I love the parenthetical little thing, no cursing under your breath. Make friends with nobodies. People who aren't going to enhance your business or your life. People you may never see again. Be friends. Get the best of evil by doing good. Don't just pray to be removed from a tempting situation. Do something good. It's the best antidote. All these kinds of things help us to become the church in the truest sense of the world, in the truest sense of the word. So for this message, I entitled it Thoughts While Rummaging. I decided to go rummaging through some of my sermon examples, and some I just haven't used. And some I thought, I can't really build a sermon around that, so I'm putting a lot of them together, and I've chosen a nice umbrella, the church, and so they all fit. An African proverb: if you want to walk fast, you must walk alone. But if you want to walk far, you must walk together. Now, the word together is the key word here. It doesn't mean just amble along the sidewalk in downtown Boston, going in the same direction with other faceless people in the same crowd. But together, connected, laughing and weeping with each other at appropriate times, knowing each other that well, caring, sometimes carrying each other, or being carried, shifting our pace or even our direction because of the influence or the needs of others, walking together. These things take time. They can't be done well if they're rushed. But we live in a society that is squeezing more and more things into less and less space, aren't we? As Stephen Covey one time said, he was doing The 7 Habits of Effective People. That's not the exact title, but you know who I mean. We are often immersed in the thick of thin things. Well said. Everything seems urgent. We lose perspective and become servants of our date books. For those modern people, this is a date book. I'm a primitive person, but now it's like your iPod, your iPad, your smartphone. You have you're there all the time, but this is what I go by, and I'll probably die with this in my hands, but that's okay. He said, there's no wisdom in this kind of life. Real planning always involves the long range and must include our deepest ideals and values in life. If we don't plan them in, other things will crowd out the time, and we'll wonder, how come we haven't seen so-and-so, or haven't written that letter, or haven't prayed? Because we didn't make the time first. Churches don't find their identity primarily in the number of things that they do or accomplish, but in the depth of their life together in God, and then the resulting compassion and power of their outreach, of their fellowship, of their service together. Starts with God. These realities will determine not only what we do, but how we do them. So we seek to move from being just smart to being wise. Dr. Bernie Siegel, he said, if I go to my therapist and say, I want to be a more loving and caring person, the therapist is going to tell me, well, then you have to act like you are a more loving and caring person. Begins with our action. We don't will ourselves into being different so much as we have to live our way into it. We practice. All churches must realize this if they want to have a viable future. The newer, younger generations are not interested in churches that are based primarily on good words, but on good deeds. What kind of actions? I turn to Wendell Berry. Rats and roaches live by competition under the laws of supply and demand. And he's implying that that's pretty tempting for us, too. It is the privilege of human beings to live under the laws of justice and mercy. See, we get to choose. We can live in the rat race, or we can back off and say, I don't like what this is doing to me or what my actions cause to happen in this world. I want to live more out of justice and mercy. I make that choice. These are strong words, but trying to live our lives as expressions of justice and mercy can be very risky to our comfort and to our very lifestyle itself. A story from Fred Craddock. He says, a woman, Leanne, worked with death row inmates in Texas. Now, that tells you something about Leanne from the outset. Coming in, forming relationships with people she doesn't know who are on death row. And there's a lot of those folks in Texas. Texas is probably the capital of punishment in our country. She spent a lot of time with a younger man who had killed someone else in a fit of rage when he was 17. On his last night, she visited him. That takes guts, too. She asked if there's anything she could do, an errand, a phone call. No, he said, but can you sing? Not really, but I'll try. My favorite song is Silent Night. So there in the visiting area, last time she's going to see him, she sang Silent Night. She said her final goodbye. She went home, and the next day, he was executed. She said she felt okay about it at the time until Christmas Eve rolled around. And then the congregation sang Silent Night. She said, I had a rough time. And her quote is, I wasn't sure if he had ruined my Christmas or if he made it. Loving others doesn't have to be as dramatic as the relationship she had and what he was facing. Loving anybody involves changes for us. It's disruptive to our comfortable patterns. It doesn't make life easier. A loving church isn't primarily a warm, friendly, comfortable group that's just warm and fuzzy all the time. A loving church is a courageous gathering of people who want to express it through action, challenging us to live lives that embody those deepest values that we believe come from God. Like this following story. It's entitled Spoiled Rotten, and it's by Elizabeth Colbert, written in the New Yorker magazine this past July. She says, in 2004, an anthropologist named Caroline Izquierdo spent several months with the Matsugenka. I do not know if I'm pronouncing these names right, but I'm trying. An isolated tribe of about 12,000 people who live in the Peruvian Amazon, very isolated. They build houses that they roof with the leaves of a particular kind of palm tree known as capashi. A 5-day leaf gathering expedition was planned. Yanira, member of another family, asked if she could join them. Although Yanira had no clear role in the group, she quickly found ways to make herself useful. Twice a day, she swept the sand off the sleeping mats. She helped stack the capashi leaves for transport back to the village. And in the evening, she fished for crustaceans, which she cleaned, and she boiled, and she served to the others. Calm and self-possessed, Yanira asked for nothing. But the girl's behavior made a strong impression on the anthropologist from America because Yanira was only 6 years old. And this, the anthropologist posed as a juxtaposition of a study done in LA, 32 middle-class families, filming them as they ate, fought, made up, and did the dishes, family time. Wouldn't you all love to have your family hour captured on secret cameras so you couldn't play up to the camera and have it broadcast? Oh boy, this is what it's really like in my house. It was noticed that no child routinely performed any chores around the house without being instructed to do so. And even when begged to help out, many refused. Ben, for example, couldn't get his sneakers on because they were already tied. He demanded that his father untie them. Dad didn't like his tone, but eventually Dad untied the sneakers. After putting them on, Ben asked his father to tie them. When his father exploded, Ben whined, "I'm just asking." Many U.S. parents will say that it takes so much time and energy to get the kids to cooperate, they often wind up doing the job themselves. Two very different worlds. Now, this kind of stuff can provoke all kinds of animated discussions. Yes, I know that there are lots of cooperative kids in LA and in our country and in our church and in our families. But still, that video of the LA families touches a nerve that we would have been shocked 50 years ago to see this. But it's not so shocking now. But I want to shift the focus back from U.S. kids to Yanira. What could possibly have moved her to put her tribe first and to seek to live a life of cooperation and service? Well, this is the lifestyle that's common to all primitive tribes. They learned through experience that the only way they could survive was to teach the children that your life isn't primarily about you. It's about the group. It's about the tribe. So it comes almost naturally. I suspect she was never taught in words, but by example. See, we used to know that. but those values have been seriously challenged. And we wonder, is it part of the price of greater affluence, greater entertainment, greater distractions? But Yanira, who most likely has never heard of Jesus, would resonate right away with his words and teachings. They're in her heart. The first shall be last. If you want to, be a servant of all. Put the needs of others before your own. Those words are in her heart, and we have to ask, well, who put them there? She understands the meaning of church without ever having heard the word. Love from the center of who you are. Hold on for dear life to good. Be inventive in hospitality. Get the best of evil by doing good. Somebody taught her. And not primarily with words, but with actions. And we really know, that these kinds of discrepancies between her world and ours aren't mainly about our kids, they're about us. They're about our values, what we embody. And so we come to church to look in the mirror, to ask God for the courage to take in what we see and to grow and be transformed. There is a grace and a peace to young Yanira because she understands something of the heart of life and has given herself to it effortlessly, unobtrusively. And she's 6. And it reminds me of the passage from the Bible, and a little child shall lead them. May she lead us to love from the center of our being, to be creative in hospitality, and to get the best of evil by doing good. Amen.